leader, you have to have strong beliefs. You have to have a plan. You have to have a set of goals. You have to know where you're going and where you're taking your organization, and you have to spend a lot of time trying to figure that out. If you don't know where you're going, and you don't know where your organization is going, you can't lead people. You can't change something that seems to be intractable unless you have very strong views and you're willing to lead in that direction, even if it might make you unpopular. And in order to be a leader, the first and most fundamental thing you have to do is figure out what you believe, what you want to accomplish, what you want to get done, where you want to take your organization. The second thing that a leader has to be, and has to train themselves to be, is leader has to be an optimist. Now this may sound strange, because when I say a leader has to be an optimist, it may sound like he just should be happy all the time, or she should be happy all the time, and just ignore all the things that are going wrong and all the things. I mean just the opposite of that. A leader has to be able to accept the things that are going wrong and turn it into how are we going to solve it, how are we going to take care of it. Now, I suggest that whether you want to be a leader or not, you should be an optimist. You have a lot more fun. However, if you want to be a leader, you have to train yourself to be an optimist. People follow the person who offers hope. People follow the person who offers the apparent solution to the problem. And if you want to train yourself to be a leader, train yourself to be a problem solver. In every group, there are problem solvers, and there are people who get so wound up in the problem, all they can do is keep repeating it. A leader has to have courage. And courage is often seen as a kind of a characteristic that's beyond us, that's only for people who do extraordinary, superheroic things. Well, the reality is that courage is in everyone. Everyone has the ability to be courageous. Courage is not the absence of fear. Everybody has fears. People who do firefighting for a living, who run into fires, are afraid of fires, and people who go to war are afraid of being killed or shot, and people who are police officers and have to go save people during gunfights and are afraid to do it. So how do they do their jobs? They do their jobs by overcoming it, by dealing with the fear, by recognizing that something is dangerous, and then managing it so that they can accomplish what they have to accomplish. And a very practical way of doing that, particularly if we're talking about business or government or things that are not as dramatic as life and death situations, the very best way to deal with fear is to think about the fact that in everything you do, there's risk. How do you deal with that risk? Well, that's the fourth principle of leadership, and it's called relentless preparation. When I was told about the attack on the World Trade Center, I was about 5-6 miles away in Midtown Manhattan, and I had no idea what was going on. The police came in, and the police told me that there was an attack at the World Trade Center, and they told me that a twin-engine plane had hit the North Tower. So I had no idea how bad it was. I rushed down to the scene. When I got there, I saw how terrible it was. Just before I got there, I was told that another plane had hit, so I knew now that it was a terrorist attack, but I still had no appreciation of how bad it was. Until I looked up in the sky, and I saw that what I was seeing was not debris falling down, but I was watching a man throw himself out of the 101st, 102nd floor. Well, I looked at that, I was in shock. I remained in shock for about 2 or 3 seconds, I guess, and I said to the people around me, this is way beyond anything we prepared for. We're going to have to make up our response. And what I meant by that was we had all kinds of plans. We had 25, 30 different plans for how to deal with an emergency. Airplane crash, building collapse, hostage situation, hurricane, West Nile virus, all the things I mentioned before. But we didn't have a plan for airplanes being used as missiles attacking our buildings. So I thought, well, how are we going to deal with this? And then I just had to start making decisions. I had to decide where to send the police to guard against other attacks. We had to cut off Lower Manhattan so no more people would come into the city. We had to remove hundreds of thousands of people from the scene. We had to triage the hospitals. We had to bring in generators to light up the area so we could work 24 hours a day. And as I was making those decisions, I realized that every single one of them came from a plan, although it was a plan for something different than this. Like triaging the hospitals came from our plan for West Nile virus. Getting the generators to light up Ground Zero came from our plan for hurricanes and for blackouts. Dealing with the evacuation came from our plan for flooding and hurricanes. Now, why was that important? That was important because all of a sudden I came to the realization that we were prepared, that these were things we had done before, although not in such a terrible situation. Therefore, my people could relate it to the things they were going to have to do now under pressure. And that's why relentless preparation is so important. If you are in charge of anything, or if you're put in charge of anything, big or small, business, social club, team, government, here's the first question to ask and answer. If you do this, you will make your organization better immediately. Here's the question. What are my weaknesses? What don't I do well? And then go find someone as your number 2 or 3 person who does well what you don't do well. If you ask the question, what are my weaknesses? And the answer you come back with, none, then ask your wife. The best thing to do to boost your economy is to be business friendly. Businesses are not the enemy. Businesses should never be the enemy of government. There are good businesses, most of them, and there are bad businesses, just like there are good people and bad people. And people aren't the enemy of government. And to some extent, in some cases, because of ideology, business becomes the enemy of government. And it makes no sense. Businesses, after all, are just conglomerations of people. And businesses are the saviors in the sense that they're the job producers. And the more of them you have, the more people that are working. The more of them they have, the more options people have. So government should be business friendly.
Thank you very much for your talk. I just wanted to ask you, we're coming out of the euphoria and the excitement and the success of the 2010 World Cup. What advice would you give to young leaders to keep that momentum going in this country?
I would say I'm a very big believer in advertising. I did a lot of advertising campaigns for New York City. I think you should, people all over the world know how successful the World Cup was. It can, to some extent, create a different image of South Africa for them if they had an unfavorable image before. I would say that now there's an opportunity for them to look at South Africa in another way, and this is the time to do a lot of advertising, creative, really good advertising in the markets in which you think people in countries might want to do business in South Africa or might want to come and visit South Africa. This is a country where I think people should know that. They should know that it's a safe, good place to do business. Not every place in the world is a safe place to do business. And you also have the advantage of growth. You've got a lot of growth ahead of you, which is a good place to put money. You know, a country that's already grown, like the United States, if the United States has a 2 or 3 or 4% rate of growth, that's fantastic for the United States. But it would be impossible to have a rate of growth much beyond that when you consider the gross volume that you have to deal with. A country like yours could have rates of growth like India and closer like India and China. And that becomes a wonderful place to invest.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we give Mayor Giuliani a round of applause?
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.